The CDC states that falls among adults 65 and older caused over 36,000 deaths in 2020. That made it the leading cause of injury in death for that specific group. So pretty crazy statistic there. And if you are a senior or you are somebody who cares for a senior, you're going to want to stay until the end of this video because we're going to go over a lot of different reasons when it comes to senior fall risk. We're going to talk about why seniors fall, some of the best exercises for seniors, and we're even going to talk about some adaptive equipment that seniors or somebody you're caring for can use to get the most benefit out of your overall fall reduction routine. So go ahead, stay till the end of the video, like this video. Let's go ahead and jump right in. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about today is just briefly go over some of the common causes of falls in seniors. So there's a lot of different things that could lead to a senior falling, and a lot of people just think that it's just bad balance. Oh, it's a senior, I'm getting older, and their balance gets bad. That's just what happens. And although that is one thing that does happen, there are some other things that happen as well in addition to poor balance. But by far, one of the most common reasons for falls in seniors is just straight up inactivity. Now, the way I like to describe this is that balance is something that needs to be practiced. Balance is a skill just like anything else in our daily life. And if you aren't challenging yourself, if you aren't constantly pushing yourself, guess what? The balance that used to exist because you probably were challenging yourself at some point through your life, maybe this was through a sport or a just difficult physical activity. Maybe you used to like going out for really long hikes all the time. That kind of decreases as a lot of individuals age. And because of this, you are basically not practicing the skill of just doing hard activities. Those difficult and hard activities are where you challenge your body, you improve your balance, and hence get the ability to do all those things. And a lot of individuals, when they retire especially, get to that age, maybe they've put in a lot of good years at work, and obviously most people do, but once you hit retirement, you're just a little more sedentary and you don't do quite as much physical activity. And that may seem great, you're resting your body. Your body still needs to be challenged to some degree, otherwise you are a very, very large fall risk. Another thing I kind of wanted to mention too is that there's this idea that older adults and seniors shouldn't push and challenge themselves, and I don't know if this is from doctors, thinking that people who are older are just more fragile, but just because you're older doesn't mean you should not push yourself and challenge yourself in the gym, doesn't mean you shouldn't do some sports or things that maybe have you moving quicker and just challenge your body a little bit more. We should all be doing those things just in our constraints. Obviously, if you have a lot of knee pain, I'm not going to tell you to go squat 1,000,000 pounds, but maybe joining a recreational pickleball league or trying to join a golfing league or a bowling league or something that's challenging you is super, super crucial, not just for your physical attributes, but your mental health as well. Kind of a side note there. Another big reason that seniors fall, and a common reason for falls in seniors, is the vision and hearing aspect. Now, a lot of people don't realize this, but what's called your vestibular senses is essentially all of the different senses with your hearing and your vision. And those are kind of in tandem. And as one gets older, their vision usually goes down a little bit and their hearing goes down a little bit. And what people don't realize is that when this happens, your balance is actually perturbed quite a bit. And this is simply because your body takes visual cues and your body takes audio cues to help notice the surroundings around you. So if you can't do that properly, and if you can't kind of keep the aspects of everything around you properly, guess what? it's a much harder time for you to balance, simply because, again, that vestibular sense system, that's exactly what it does. That's exactly what it does. So just some things to consider if you do have poor vision. I have poor vision, and I know myself, my hearing's not the best either. So these are things that I need to consider once I become older. But especially if you are older right now, you need to check up your glasses, you need to check up your hearing, because that really could increase your overall fall risk. And then, of course, environment. This is such a really crucial one. If you are living in an environment where there is lots of trip hazards, where let's say you go down and look at your home and there's a bunch of clutter on the ground, or maybe you have a bunch of different rugs on the ground, maybe you're in kind of not the most accessible of apartment complexes, where you have to go up a huge flight of stairs or go up a really large curb, or maybe there's no hand railings. Trip hazards and things like that everywhere is a super common reason that seniors will fall in their daily lives. Weather conditions, of course. I'm lucky enough to be blessed to live in Iowa, so we get the good old snowfall, and if we're really lucky, we get some good old ice fall every winter, and this leads to a lot of falls in seniors that I work with and know. And a lot of this is usually because they're kind of rushing from their activities day to day. So if they, don't have time to think, oh, I need to take extra time to go ice my sidewalk, and then they go out and, wipe out on the sidewalk, that's of course a huge fall risk. And besides that too, also just even rain. Anything where it's just a little bit slicker, the conditions aren't the best, you might not be able to see as well too in some certain weather conditions, and as we just described, this can be a huge reason that your fall risk might increase. Lack of assistive devices too. If you are somebody who's maybe lower income or know somebody who's lower income, they may not be able to get the best walker or the best cane or the best railings to have along their home to kind of help them in their overall daily activities. So that's just kind of a huge thing to consider for yourself as well. And one of the other big things here, and there's a lot of things that could lead to fall risk, but medications. I know a lot of individuals that I work with are taking some medications that make them dizzy, make them fatigued, and both of these, of course, can lead to a kind of decreased sense of perception, which can of course lead to an increased fall risk. So a lot of different things there, and the thing about all of these fall risks is that they usually culminate on top of each other. So it's not just one, it's not just two, it's usually a lot of these things kind of all lumped together, which is usually why a lot of seniors and older adults are at a really increased risk of fall risk. It's not just one of these things, it's a lot of things together. So just some things to consider. We're trying to minimize as much as we can in our daily lives, and these are a few different things to consider. So go ahead and give this video a like so far if you're getting some value from it. In addition to that, kind of one of the biggest things that I have to talk to seniors about is the importance of exercise and physical activity in preventing falls. And maybe you're thinking like, oh, I've tried balance classes and I've tried all these things and it just doesn't work. Well, maybe, but as I described, balance is a skill. And if you don't work on a skill, what happens? You will rapidly lose it. Let's think about this from a sense of maybe writing. What happens if you stop writing? You're gonna forget how to do it. Right? What happens if you stop speaking? You're going to forget how to do it. And you can get it back fairly quickly, and this is the same for balance. If you do practice it and you are diligent in keeping at it, you can get those skills back very quickly. But the problem is a lot of seniors are kind of scared to challenge their balance, scared to have some more balance in their routine. And they may just be scared to fall again. So of course, if we're scared to fall and we're not practicing balance, but we need to practice balance to keep our balance, that's a huge issue. So this is kind of a big mindset shift, but that's something I just want you to realize, that exercise, when it comes to exercise and physical activity, that just doing anything period is going to help you. So without exercise, of course, your strength decreases, your coordination and ability to kind of navigate the world decreases, your overall mobility decreases, and your quickness and power decreases. And all of these aspects of fitness are highly correlated to fall risk in seniors and older adults. In other words, older adults and seniors who have less of all of those attributes, strength, coordination, mobility, quickness, and power, are at a much higher increased risk of falling and hurting themselves and potentially leading to long-term disability. This is why it's so crucial to do some type of physical activity and exercise. And there's a lot of different ones that you could do. But let's just think about it. Most exercises encompass some aspect of balance. Walking, there's a huge amount of balance in that. Let's think about just doing some free weight squats. A lot of people know that exercise. There's a huge balance component when you do squats, because the second you go down, your center of gravity changes. It's going forward a little bit, and you're going to have to kind of move backward and shift yourself to be able to catch yourself balance-wise. Let's use some sports that are commonly used by seniors. So pickleball, golf, you're changing your direction, you're changing your center of gravity, you're working your body, you're challenging your strength, your coordination, mobility, quickness, and power in basically all of those things, some a little more than others, but at the end of the day, we're not trying to split hairs here. We're trying to just keep physically active in something we enjoy, because that's what's going to lead to long-term results. If you can't find something you enjoy at least somewhat, guess what? You're not going to stick with it, and you're ultimately going to be at an increased fall risk simply because you stopped doing that form of exercise. So the best advice I could give on that front is just to find something you like. Go ahead and give this video a like on top of that if you're finding value from this so far. So let's talk about some common exercises that seniors can do to improve falls of course, reduce the risk of falls and improve their overall balance. So there's a lot of different ways to look at this, but the way I like to break it down is in 5 different aspects of balance. So that's static balance, dynamic balance, visual and audio cues, agility, and core strength. So static balance, simply being, is just exercises where you are standing still. And you might be thinking, duh, how is this balance? Well, if you think about it, when you are just standing up and down, it takes a decent amount of balance to be able to just do that. And the reason I know this is because I have worked with individuals over the years who have not been able to do that. And I've seen just how tricky it is for some individuals to just hold themselves up. So static balance is really crucial. Way you could work on this is through balance pad holds. So literally go on a balance pad, stand, and try to just not move at all, and just don't move a muscle. So static balance is incredibly crucial. That's the ability to not move at all in a static position. Dynamic balance is also incredibly crucial as well. So this is, of course, your balance when you are moving. A common example of dynamic balance would be when you are walking, going up a curb, kind of taking steps, changing your center of gravity really quickly. That's dynamic balance. So static balance is a base for dynamic balance. And then once you have good static balance, you can kind of move into more dynamic stuff. An example of a dynamic balance drill that you can do at your home is just some simple marches in place. So picking up your knee, bringing it back down, bringing the other knee up, bringing it back down. You can even add your arms into it as well. Super simple exercise that will allow you to work your dynamic balance. And there's a lot of good resources on my channel as well. You can find multiple different good balance drills as well. Let's talk about visual and audio though. So visual and audio cues are incredibly crucial. And this is something that a lot of seniors don't realize, is that if you close your eyes or if you close your ears or do a combination of both, you're actually going to be affecting your balance tremendously. And this is because your vestibular senses is basically your body's ability to be aware of all the things around you, is highly affected with your vision and balance. So if you take those two things away, guess what? you're not going to be able to make micro adjustments and see as well, which can greatly help you to reduce the risk of falling. So because of this, I like to work on this aspect of balance. And in my balance classes with the seniors I work with, I will simply have them close their eyes and try to hold their feet together and not move a muscle. And it sounds easy. Try it right now. It will be very, very tough for you. And again, it's a really good balance drill. Be careful when you're doing that though. Have something near you to hold on to if you did want to try it. Another aspect of balance that I work on with the seniors in my classes and just in general is agility. Now, agility is something that a lot of people think is just for athletes. You know, oh, I need to be agile, I need to move quicker, and I need to move fast, and boom, boom, boom. Yes, for athletes, it is incredibly important to have good agility, but it is also incredibly important for seniors to have good agility as well. This quickness greatly helps with fall reduction, because if you think about it, a lot of times when an individual falls, they can't catch themselves. They can't move quickly enough to actually catch from that actual fall. So because of this, it would make sense to, hey, let's work on our agility and ability to move quickly at our own level and capability, of course, so then we can hopefully reduce the risk of falls. So a really simple agility drill that you can do is just fast shuffle side to side. You can put like a towel or some type of marker on the ground that you can step over, and then literally go back and forth, stepping left and right or either forward or backward as quickly as you can over it. And that's going to work your agility, that's going to work your balance quite a bit, and ultimately is a great way to hopefully help you reduce the risk of falls happening for yourself. And kind of the last aspect of balance that I like to talk about with the seniors that I work with is core strength. Now, if you don't have proper core strength, the ability to balance and have dynamic balance and dynamic balance, static balance, visual and audio, all those things don't even matter if you don't have the base of core strength. If you don't have enough strength to just hold yourself without kind of tumbling and wobbling around, guess what? It's going to be so much harder for you to actually walk in public or just hold yourself up without doing anything. So proper core strength is incredibly crucial for balance. A way I like to work balance when it comes to core strength is what I call a side lean hold. So you'll put both of your feet together, okay? And then basically you're going to lean towards one side, towards your right, left, doesn't really matter, and you're just going to try to hold that position. So that's going to work your core strength. It's going to challenge your overall balance and ability to kind of make micro adjustments on your center of gravity change. It's really, really going to work your balance pretty well. So those are the 5 aspects. And of course, there's a lot of exercises outside of balance and specific balance and coordination drills that you can do. Some of these are literally just sports. So pickleball, you could do golf, you could do hockey. I know some seniors in rec league hockey thing that I do, they play hockey. You know, they keep up on it though. They keep up on it. It might sound crazy. Basketball, again, you can find lots of people at your individual levels that you can do these rec league sports with, and you're working a huge amount of balance, and you're also reacting to a lot of different things in these sports too. And that's a huge part of balance as well, is being able to, let's say a car is coming near you. You need to be able to react and move quickly to evade the car of one thing, but then also catch yourself once you evade it. You need to be able to stop once you get to that point. Free weights are a great way to work your balance because there's a lot of different movements going on. Say if you have like a dumbbell and you're trying to press it overhead, guess what? That dumbbell's going all over the place, and your body's going to need to make micro adjustments to work your balance and of course challenge it. Body weight exercises, biking. If you're a senior and you're comfortable with biking, of course, that's really challenging because your entire time you're on balance. That one I would be very careful and only do that if you have pretty good eyesight. Walking, of course. Tai Chi, this is something that a lot of seniors get benefit from. And this is a very slow and methodical balance class where you're basically practicing shifting your weight back and forth in between your feet. And a lot of seniors really enjoy that, especially the ones I work with, for improving their overall balance. And for you classy seniors or older adults, dance classes, of course. If you have good moves, I do not. I like to think I do, but I need some work myself, so pray for me. But dance classes, of course, there's the rhythm. So you're keeping kind of that mental connection, right? So that's one aspect. But you're also challenging your balance because you have to move to your right and left, back and forth. You have to coordinate with your partner if you're working with your partner. And especially if you're doing really quick dance classes, really fast, like salsa or something, you're going to challenge your balance a lot. So lots of different ways you can challenge your balance and work your overall coordination. Go ahead and give this video a like so far if you're finding some value from it. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is just some simple modifications that can be done in your home to help prevent falls in seniors. And there's a lot of different ways we can go about this, but I just kind of wanted to break it down into a few different areas of the home. And the first one is being bathrooms. So when it comes to the bathroom, of course, anti-slip mats are a really good idea. So placing those, of course, in the tub, but maybe on top of that, you're also going to be doing some stuff maybe just on the regular ground too. So of course in the tub, but maybe just the entire ground is one giant anti-slip mat. And I know some people who actually will get a lot of different rubber tread in their bathroom. That can happen too. It's going to be a little more costly that way. But of course, there's a lot of different ways to do it. On top of that, handrails are so crucial and a really easy hack that you can do to make less of a fall risk in your bathroom. So you can place some handrails on maybe the actual bathtub. Maybe you have some handrails kind of near the bathroom or the toilet, I should say. And all of those little things are just little gripping points that allows you to get into position better, get some stability and hold on to something. So you can, of course, reduce the risk of falls in that bathroom setting. There's a lot of really cool ones too that actually hook up or suction cup onto the wall. That's one aspect. Some are just straight up, they drill into the wall. So lots of different handrails you can get. And then another aspect too is raised toilet seats. So if you can't get down all the way onto the toilet, if you don't have enough strength, ideally we're going to try to be doing some squats to get your leg strength up. But you can also just simply get a raised toilet seat where literally it's going to boost you up a little bit. So it's going to make it a little easier for you to get off of the seat, which of course can reduce the risk of falling because you're not going to be rocking back and forth trying to get up out of that position. When it comes to your living room, limiting rugs and limiting clutter or other fall hazards is probably one of the biggest things. So just not having a bunch of stuff around. And this is going to maybe take some time where you have to kind of note like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that I had a rug that's really, really invasive and in the middle of my living room. I should probably get rid of that. I know myself personally when I'm thinking right now, I have a very large rug that's not just rug in or large in overall depth, but it's also large in the fact that it has a lot of raised edges. So that is a huge fall risk. And if I was somebody who was a little bit older, I would probably get rid of that rug all entirety because you're literally just asking to hurt yourself. So limiting clutter, limiting fall hazards, like those different things. When it comes to stairs, as we talked about with the bathroom, you can get some extra handrails actually on the stairs. You can add in a lift as well. I've been to some homes where they actually have, it's literally like a mini escalator. So these would be, of course, a little expensive, but basically you sit down in it and you click a button and it goes all the way up and all the way down. Of course, I would still hope that this individual is trying to be a little physically active and work their leg strength so they can someday hopefully even get up a few flight of stairs. But if you're not at that point right now, a lift might be a good option for you. And then of course, if you are in a situation where there's only a couple stairs or if it's maybe outside, you might be able to add in a ramp. This is something that I've seen done at a lot of homes where basically they have a really long driveway and they have like a set of 3 staircases. So instead of using the stairs, they had a giant ramp built into their home. And these are actually relatively cheap when it comes to the accessibility that it offers, and definitely something that I would consider if you are in a permanent residence or considering living in a place for a really long time. When it comes to your bedroom, you could have a small step up to the side of your bed, so just a little step stool. They actually create some kind of very small staggered steps for this specific reason, where basically you can kind of climb up the stairs and kind of shimmy yourself up onto the bed. If you just look at Amazon of, I think like bedside stairs or something like that, it can give you a good idea. Also, a small side railing on the bed can kind of help you to hoist yourself up if you do need that, and lower yourself down into the bed as well. And then just make sure your bed's at an appropriate height. So you obviously don't want a bed that's super, super low, because once you try to get up in the morning, you're going to be at an increased fall risk. And then of course you don't want a bed that's super, super high, because you're going to be trying to hike up your hip and knee just to get up and over that bed. And then you might end up tumbling back down in that exact instance, or maybe just at some point in the night. So just make sure that it's a comfortable and appropriate height for yourself. And just some general tips when you're moving through your home: try to be slow and steady. Do your best in that regard. And then don't underestimate hazards. You might look at a piece of, let's say, mail on the ground, and you're like, oh, it's just mail, it doesn't weigh anything. And then 10 seconds later, you step on it, you slide on it, and then you might be on the ground. And I know this from personal example, and I'm somebody who's younger, so just keep in mind, if you are concerned about your balance, that that is an increased risk for you, simply because of all the other things that come with aging. Your vision goes down, your hearing goes down, usually some inactivity, and all those things culminate into having an increased fall risk. Go ahead and like the video so far if you're getting some value from this. And let's dive into the next section. This next section is exciting for me because there's a lot of different ways that we can actually add some assistive devices in our life to hopefully help reduce the risk of falls in seniors. And some of these you've probably heard of, and some of these maybe you haven't considered. So a walker and a cane, of course, that's a duh. A lot of people, this is the first thing you'll lean towards. And if you are somebody who is wanting a walker and a cane, you might not be able to get a custom fit, but I would highly recommend to go to a secondhand store like Goodwill or any of these kind of just secondhand stores, generally speaking. And you can usually find a cane or walker or some of these other devices in those stores very, very cheap. I actually bought a walker at a Goodwill for $5, and I use it for some of my exercise videos to demonstrate. So just an example of a place you can get some cheap equipment like that. A gait belt, this might be a good assistive device for you if you are working with a senior, or if you live alone and have a nurse coming and help you. A gait belt is basically something that wraps around your waist and chest, and it is basically something that people can lift up on to pull you up into position and give you a little bit of support when you're walking around. That's a super great assistive device that can help with seniors. And in addition to that, the Apple Watch. This is a really, really cool thing that I wanted to highlight, because a lot of older adults nowadays are very, very tech savvy, and getting even more tech savvy as the years go on, which is great. There's a lot of good technology that can help seniors, but the Apple Watch in particular can help with fall risk. And some of the newer models, they actually have a setting where if you fall on the ground too hard, or basically it will detect if you fall. So if your watch moves quickly in a certain aspect, it can ping your watch and say, hey, we think you have fallen, should we call for help? And from there you can have it call 911 or do all these things. So it's kind of like Life Alert, which is one of the other assistive devices that seniors can use. But the Apple Watch is really, really cool. And I'm sure there's a lot of other things too that can help with fall risk and overall health and well-being in seniors. But I haven't had an Apple Watch in a while. I sold mine a couple years ago, but I do know of that specific one that can help. In addition to Life Alert, everyone knows Life Alert. It's basically a little clip, and some have like monitors, like bracelets, some have necklaces, and basically it's a button that kind of can signal to EMS immediately if something's wrong, if something feels off. That's a really, really good one because you can take that anywhere, and it's kind of separate from your own phone, right? So go ahead, just type in Life Alert into Google. You can find some good information on Life Alert, but basically it's an emergency system that can help you when you have fallen. So it's not going to prevent falls necessarily, but it can help you if you've gotten to one. Mini steps, really, really crucial here. So if you are at a place that has really large steps and you're like, oh my gosh, this is too difficult for my mobility and strength, there are a lot of different ways that you can make steps smaller. One of the ways I've seen this done is by actually adding small bricks in between the actual steps. So instead of having really large steps, they have steps that are about half the size because they've kind of added more bricks. You can, of course, just replace the stairs and try to get smaller stairs, but we're not reinventing the wheel here. And sometimes just adding a little bit of an extra boost can help you in those mini steps, and kind of along the same aspects of adding either handrails or ramps to your daily life. So if you have a set of stairs that's really, really tough, a handrail is a super easy way to make it easier to get up onto, and of course can reduce the overall fall risk of happening. These are really easy to install as well. Sometimes they can be installed directly into a home. Sometimes you can actually drill something into the ground if your stairs are outside, but really easy way to do it. And then speaking of other things that we can do outside, a lot of people will want to get a ramp in their home if they can't really get upstairs and they have a lot of stairs. So these ramps are actually pretty easy. I wouldn't say easy to install, but they're pretty cheap and fairly easy to install for kind of the benefit that they offer older adults and seniors in reducing fall risk. You can get ramps up into your home, and you can also even have some ramps around your home too. And when I say ramp, it almost sounds like a skateboarding ramp. This isn't a very crazy ramp. It's a very, very not steep incline, right? This is only like a 1-inch incline. It's basically something that reduces the trip hazard because a stair is a trip hazard. So if you have something that's more smooth and more steady, that's of course a little bit easier to get up onto. Anti-slip mats, those will be incredibly crucial if you are walking around your home in slippery areas. So maybe you have some in the shower, maybe you have some in the kitchen. There's a lot of different places that anti-slip mats can be incredibly useful for. If you're not familiar with a Hoyer lift is actually something that usually you would use for somebody. So if you are a loved one working with somebody who's at a fall risk or a senior who doesn't have a lot of strength, you can actually kind of have somebody sit in this Hoyer lift, and it's basically this giant web that they sit in. And when they sit in it, you can then crank up this, I don't know, it's just a lever. It's just a giant lever. And basically it helps get them out of the chair. It helps get them out of the chair. And from there, you can kind of move them around a little bit. You can sit them down in another chair. So if they're in a position where they really, maybe they're just sick and they don't have a lot of strength to do anything, having a Hoyer lift available if you are in that situation. Again, hopefully you're not, and hopefully if you're a senior, you're still working on your strength as much as you can. But I understand sometimes it comes to a point where you need stuff like Hoyer lifts. And then special shoes. This is really cool. So there are numerous different types of anti-slip shoes on the market. You can literally type in just zero slip shoes. Also trying to find some shoes that have maybe a wider base on them, because the wider the base, the better your balance is going to be with those specific shoes, because As we know, if you have a wider base, it's easier to balance on. Think about it. If you are having your feet nice and narrow, it's tougher to balance. If you have your feet nice and wide, it's going to be easier to balance. So the same concept applies for your shoes too. If you get a shoe that's a little bit wider, it can be incredibly easier for you to balance. And of course, try it without shoes as well. That's the only way your balance is going to truly get better. But I would definitely look into those anti-slip shoes because those can really, really help. A lot of servers will use anti-slip shoes in basically the kitchen because they're around grease and a lot of things that are very, very at a high risk for falling. So think about it. We can use those types of shoes if you're a senior as well. So go ahead and give this video a like if you've provided some value from it so far. And let's go ahead and dive into our next point, being seniors and fall risk in the community. So how can seniors reduce their fall risk when they're out in the community? I think one of the biggest things that you can do is simply plan your trip ahead. You need to note if there's any fall hazards that's going to be happening. And the way I like to do this is to think about the venue I'm going to, think about the parking lot, think about if there's any steps, think about if there's any curbs. Think about what are you going into? Is there going to be an elevator that I'm going to be able to use? Or is there going to be an escalator? Or is there none of that and you basically have to walk up this giant hill? That's going to be a huge thing when you're trying to plan your trip ahead. So just note some of those fall hazards. Bring a walker or cane if needed. Better safe than sorry, and especially with something like a cane that's pretty transportable. You can always bring it, and if you decide you get to the venue, you don't need it, okay, then you don't need it. You just don't use it. But also, too, you could bring a walker that's collapsible and a little easier to transport around. Super simple way to hopefully reduce the risk of falls in the community. And then I kind of already touched on this, but mapping out your route and kind of knowing exactly where you need to go and exactly where you want to go can make it much easier to reduce the risk of falls because you're not going to be rushing to get everything done. You're not going to be rushing to get to your venue really quickly. You're going to know exactly where you're parking, where you're going to, and ultimately where you need to go. So we're kind of taking out some of the rush factor of it. And rushing is a huge reason for falls because, of course, the faster you rush, the less time you're thinking, and the less time you're thinking, the more time you have to fall, unfortunately. So another thing too is medication. So there are certain medications for older adults and seniors that may make you dizzy or make you tired, maybe can't make you think quite as well. So taking those before, then also realizing what effect they have, because you obviously don't want to be taking a certain medication like that when you're going out into the community for a long period of time. Because that's obviously at an increased fall risk if you take a medication like that. Giving plenty of time, super crucial. And then have an emergency plan. Of course, we don't want to talk about emergency plans, but it is something that you should consider. So do you have your phone charged and on you? Do you have Life Alert or some type of emergency contact available in case you do fall? Are you going with a loved one or somebody you trust? These are all things that you need to have in the back of your head and in the back of your mind in case, God forbid, you're going grocery shopping and you fall in the middle of the grocery store, or even worse, maybe out in the parking lot. What happens next? What happens next? Are you just going to yell and hope for the best, or do you have your phone on you? Are you going with somebody? Does somebody know you're going to the store? These are all things to consider when reducing the risk of falls out into the community. Go ahead and give this video a like if you're providing some value from it so far. Another thing I wanted to touch on is just some basic signs that you are at an increased risk of falling. And these are some early warning signs, but also too, they might kind of come in a little late, but some of these will hopefully give you some good guidance on things to look for if you are trying to be at a less risk of falling. So weak muscles. If you're somebody who doesn't have a lot of strength to get out of a chair or doesn't have a lot of strength to pick up a small box on the ground, you're at a very, very, very increased risk of falling, because if you don't have the strength to do some of those basic activities, you're not going to have the strength to catch yourself. You're not going to have the core strength to be able to change your center of gravity in space very quickly. So weak muscles is a very, very potent sign that you're at an increased fall risk. Of course, poor balance. This is kind of self-explanatory. I don't really need to go into this too much, but poor balance and fall risk go hand in hand. Dizziness, and this can be from a lot of different things. Maybe it's medication, maybe you can't see very well. I know some of the seniors I work with have vertigo, so basically they just get dizzy if they sit up too fast or if they're standing for too long. That can increase the risk of falling tremendously. If you have any foot or musculoskeletal problems, so foot problems in specific, neuropathy. If you have neuropathy and you can't feel the ground very well, you might not be able to actually detect that, hey, my foot's not even on the ground fully and I'm not gripping it quite as well as I could be. And because of that, you might be at an increased risk of falling. Also, too, with some of these musculoskeletal issues and foot pains, if everything's hurting, you're going to be at a decreased capacity to work out or exercise, or want to work out or exercise, and I should say. And if you are at a decreased, basically, aptitude to want to work out, that's also going to increase your fall risk as well. So if you're dealing with pain and you're thinking, I'm not going to work out because I'm in pain, that's going to make it much, much harder for you to overall balance, because the only way we actually improve our balance and get better at our balance is by moving and exercising. And a lot of time when it comes to pain too, moving through those pains to the best of your ability is one of the best ways to actually kind of navigate that as well. Inactivity, we just mentioned this. If you're inactive, that greatly increases the chances of falling. Medications, and this is something that some individuals don't realize. I'm actually taking some medication right now that does make me feel a little dizzy right after I take it, and it just brings to a good point of that there are some medications that you take that maybe make you feel tired or dizzy, and if these are the case for you and you are somebody who's older, maybe you already have poor balance, something that you need to consider, because you are at an increased fall risk for those specific things. And then another thing I wanted to touch on is also memory loss and cognitive issues. If there is not another reason that you should care about your mental health and mental clarity, it's the fact that if you have poor memory or issues thinking, you're at an increased fall risk. And you might be thinking, how does that work? Well, the way this works is that if you can't think properly through different decisions in life, like maybe you're about to go across a busy street, and you're trying to wager, is this safe for me to do? You might do it if you're not thinking quite properly or thinking through properly. You might do it and end up hurting yourself. You might end up falling because it wasn't a good time for you to go out in the street. So that's just one way that kind of the cognition and memory issues can lead to that. And just another, again, reason to take care of your mental health and do the best you can on that regard. So let's talk now about some advice for helping loved ones with reducing falls. Maybe you're not somebody who's concerned with yourself falling, but you're considering or concerned with others falling. So what can you do to help them? I think one of the first things that you should do is just to simply be understanding. It's not easy for the loved one to be dealing with this certain thing. The last thing that they want to do is to be a burden on everyone's life and have them just being constantly thought about of, I need to help Mary with her balance and strength issues. That's not easy. It's very embarrassing, and there's a huge amount of ego that comes with being a little bit older, because you don't want to ask for help from people. So just realize that. Be understanding and realize that, maybe they don't want you there. As much as they need you there, they probably don't want you there to help them. The next thing that you can do is just to be caring without being too pushy. Understand it's their life and be ready to help when they are ready for it. But you can't fully change their life. If they blatantly say to you, I don't want your help, I don't need your help, go away, that's their decision. That's their decision, and you can do your best to be caring and just let them know, okay, right now I understand this is hard for you. I'll be here whenever you're ready. I'll be here when you need help. That can go a long way, because there will be a tipping point where they decide, I am ready for some help. I am ready for some change. Let's do this. I'm sorry I was rude. Let's do this. I'm ready. So being there for them is incredibly crucial as well. And then kind of another thing too, you can make some small changes without noticing, or your loved one noticing, I should say. So maybe you're going to pick a restaurant that's more accessible, or you're going to pick an activity with less fall risk. So let's think of examples for both of these. So maybe you're going to pick a restaurant that doesn't have as many stairs to get up to, or your loved one wants to go to the mall and their favorite restaurant is at the mall, but the mall has a lot of trip hazards, so you're thinking, yeah, that sounds good, but they're a little busy today. Why don't we go to this other place, because I know they have a really good meal deal today and they're not that busy. Oh, okay. So just a little gentle persuasion. Maybe an activity example, they could say, hey, I want to go to a sporting event, but that sporting event, they want the seats all the way at the bottom and there's no elevator to get there. So you're going to have to go up a flight of 50 stairs to get down and up. And maybe that's a risk that they're willing to take, and maybe it's something that they really enjoy, but you can also offer something else. Maybe let's go to another sporting event that doesn't have quite as many steps or stairs. You don't have to blatantly say that, but you can kind of just pivot their thinking to hopefully something else. Again, make small changes without them noticing. Don't push them too hard. And just at the end of the day, be caring and be loving and be there for them when they are ready to change, because they will be someday, maybe just not today. So let's go over some quick tips for seniors who have already fallen, or maybe are just scared of falling, period. So the first thing I want you to realize that fear is literally what's holding you back. But, this is the big thing. Without exercise, it will only get worse. So you might be scared of trying balance drills. You might be scared of exercising, but without actively trying to do something, it's only going to get worse. So you might be thinking, I'm scared to do it, but I know I need to do it. So what's the next steps? Well, doing activities within your comfort zone, but are still a little bit challenging. A prime example of this, maybe you are wanting to improve your balance and strength, and you're thinking to yourself right now, I can't do a free full range of motion squat because it's scary. It makes me scary. So instead, you decide, I'm going to practice squatting, but I'm just going to hold on to my countertop the whole time. Great. You're still challenging your body. You're still getting some physical activity in, but you're doing it within your comfort zone. And I think a lot of times individuals will look at somebody else, look at how somebody else moves, look at how their life is, and start comparing themselves. No, this is your game. This is all about you. Do what you can, do what you enjoy, do it in your comfort level, but still give it a little bit of a challenge. Because that challenge at the end of the day is where we find that improvement and balance. So if we don't get out of our comfort zone a little bit, and I'm not saying we got to do a lot, but if we don't get out a little bit, nothing's ever going to change. So we can think about, am I more afraid to fall and hurt myself? That's probably relevant. Or am I more afraid of what will happen if I don't challenge myself a little bit? Likely your strength is going to get much worse. You're going to end up being at a more increased risk of falling down the road in the future, and it's going to cause a huge amount of issues. And another tip for seniors who have fallen or are scared of falling is just to not beat yourself up. As you get older, your ego might come into check multiple times where people are trying to assist you and help you with different things. And you might think, I don't need any help. It's been me my whole life. And this is where you just need to be honest with yourself. Sometimes you probably don't need help opening a door or going up the stairs or bringing groceries in. But there's other times where, yeah, it's probably going to be safer for you if you do get a little assistance and a little bit of help. And in those situations, take advantage of it. Be accepting of the help when you need it. And then just deep down, not beating yourself up over it. We're all human beings. We all go through these changes of life. And as you get older, this is just one of those changes that you might need a little help. Just like when you were a child or infant, you know, we don't have any ego attached to being an infant. And we don't say, oh, I don't want help from my mom, because we know we need the help. We actually don't know for our own good. But when we get older, it's kind of not the same thing, because we have our ego set to it. So take help when needed. Don't beat yourself up over it. We're all doing our best in this life, in every aspect of our life. Go ahead and give this video a like if that was some insightful knowledge for you. So one of the last things I wanted to touch on is staying motivated to do fall prevention strategies. I understand that consistently exercising, consistently doing all the different things that we need to do to improve our balance, improve our strength and lifestyle, it can become very boring. It can become demotivating. So let's look at a few ways to kind of make it a little bit easier on yourself. So one of the things that I always do with people is to remind yourself of the other side. What happens if you don't stay consistent with your fall prevention strategies? Well, falling and injuring oneself is likely very, very possible. And once you fall and injure yourself, what happens from there? Potentially some long-term disability. And when I think about that, when I think about some of those fear-based things of, if I don't do this, it might lead to me potentially dying 5 to 10 years, maybe even 20 years earlier, that's some pretty good motivation. That's some pretty good motivation to keep up with fall prevention strategies, keep up with being healthy and fit for those specific things. You can also, if it doesn't give much value to look at your own life, you can look at your other life or other people in your life. So if I don't keep up on these fall prevention strategies, how will I affect my family? How will they get on if I end up hurting myself and I'm in the hospital for 2 years because I wasn't diligent in what I needed to do to keep up my balance and health? They're going to be pretty sad. They're going to be pretty demotivated in their life. Versus maybe we're going to be able to go travel the world because the last 5 years I've done really, really good with my balance programs. I'm able to navigate the world better. I feel more confident and I can do all those things. So you can kind of look at it of somebody else that you care for, or hopefully yourself, which you should hopefully care for as well. Accepting what you can control is super crucial. So we can accept and we can control how much we exercise, how our home's set up, and maybe even your attitude towards preventing falls. So those are all things we can control. What we can't control is ultimately how good our balance actually is. You could exercise every single day and your balance maybe doesn't get that much better. It might just be staying the same. Versus you have a friend who they barely exercise and they move better than you ever did. You can't control that though. So accepting what you can control is incredibly crucial. And then probably one of the biggest, most potent things that you can do for your overall life and staying motivated in your health and wellness is surrounding yourself with good people. Maybe these are support groups who have gone through what you've gone through. If you've already fallen and you're going through kind of the recovery stage, maybe there's support groups for fallen individuals. Maybe there's support groups for people your age. Maybe your family is just incredibly uplifting. Maybe you have friends that just always light you up. These are all people that you need to surround yourself with because they're going to lift you up when you are down and you're feeling like, man, I just feel old, I feel broken, I feel like nothing I'm going to do is going to help me get better. Those are the people you need to surround yourself with. And if you have any type of negativity, any people who are not like that in your life, it's a good time to reevaluate them. Another thing you might even consider too is looking into a life spiritual coach or even a counselor. And this may seem kind of silly, but when you get older and are going through these things, that's a huge emotional and mental change that might check your ego quite a bit, where you're thinking, man, I used to be able to run, I used to be able to move fast, I used to be able to do all these things. Now I can't do those anymore, and that's crushing my soul. And you might not have a support group, you might not have uplifting people, so you might need to seek out professional help to talk through these different things, because once you talk through them, sometimes they can motivate you, sometimes they can help you be more self-aware into how you're feeling. And all in all, these things all will culminate together to hopefully allow you to move towards a better life in the future, where you are keeping up with your fall prevention strategies and keeping up on those health promoting aspects in your life. Go ahead and like the video, subscribe to the channel. We help individuals of all abilities inside the gym become healthier in life as well. I'm also going to link another video in the pinned comment talking about osteoporosis, some tips, prevention strategies, and risk factors for you if you want to check those out. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.